Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Tonight's going to be another great show. We got Buffalo Bill stories. This is number 7. We're going to pick up right where we left off last time. What an exciting adventure that was. Holy cow. We got Buffalo Bill getting ambushed by Boyd's gang while he's dressed up as a chief after killing Dick Danforth. The Redskins with Oakhart. Oh my gosh. Let's get this straight. So, take you back into yesteryear, just sit back and enjoy the old time show, just like they did back in the day. So get your favorite cup of coffee, hot chocolate, tea, or whatever it is. Sit back and listen to this great broadcast we got for you tonight as I tell the story of Buffalo Bill and his Wild West adventures. So remember, so going back to last time, Buffalo Bill had been on the trail and he came across a Death Valley where his friend Dick Danforth, who'd saved his life a little earlier, was dead, fighting the Redskins from the Sioux with Chief Oakhart. Well, along came Boyd Bennett, as dressed up as an Indian chief medicine man, and he caught him and a bunch of braves who stalked Buffalo Bill and caught up with him. But he was saved by the Antelope Girl, anyway, who shot him in the arm and then made him the promise that he would go back to the fort and tell the great white chief to come with men to bury the dead, and that Buffalo Bill was to go to Oakhart's encampment by himself and become a prisoner. Ooh, what a circumstance that is. So, what do you do at that point? Say, no, I'm not going to come back and be your prisoner? Or do you agree and say, yep, and then lie and never come back? Because it's certain death. It's certain death if you go back. So what shall happen this week or this time? Well, let's get back. We'll get right into it as we get to chapter 19 and find out what Buffalo Bill has got in store this time. What has he got up his sleeve? Now, remember, he just got shot in the arm with an arrow. And he's got a girl that just saved him. And we are going to do this, and I'm going to share. There you go. And there you go. You don't want to see my ugly mug anyway. So we're going to chapter 9. It's called Girl's Word. The moment that Boyd Bennett gave utterance to the threat, Buffalo Bill had placed himself upon his guard, and instantly drawing his revolvers and held one covering the renegade, for he had replaced them in his belt during his conversation with the girl. His arm had recovered from the shock of the arrow blow, and he had good use of it, though it pained him. At the same instant, the girl had also covered the renegade with her bow and arrow and aimed straight at the heart, while the warrior band, which had been silent through the whole thing, had stood like statues at the action of their chief and Buffalo Bill, at once brought their rifles and arrows to aim upon the latter. Thus they stood aimed, the dead soldiers and the Sioux, which a moment of any one might anticipate or participate into a deadly encounter. Buffalo Bill, though pale, was stern and determined, and though he could see the act of the Indian girl was friendly to him, he kept his eyes riveted upon the renegade. For an instant, which seemed a long, long time, this lasted, and then the scout broke the silence with the stirring words, "Why do you not bring that finger to the trigger of your rifle, Boyd Bennett, for it won't go off otherwise. The girl understood English, and seeing that the scout dared the renegade to move, she said quickly, "The white antelope tells the braves of her tribe to turn their arrows and rifles from the heart of the killer." The command came in a tone that was firm. To the surprise and delight of Buffalo Bill, it was at once obeyed. That Boyd Bennett, the renegade, had expected as much was evident from the manner, for he made no effort to resist, fully recognizing the uselessness of so doing, for though the warriors belonged to his own band as medicine chief, yet he knew the power of the young girl was greater than anyone else, even to the authority of Oakheart. "Redskins, you are trumps, and the girl holds a full hand of you and plays you well," said Buffalo Bill, with one of his light laughs that were apparently reckless of consequences. "The laugh is yours now, Buffalo Bill, but my time will yet come," hissed the renegade. "Oh, I can't expect to laugh always, Bennett." But as the scout spoke once more the Sioux tongue so that the braves could understand him, "Let the renegade paleface meet me now in personal combat, and then his revenge or mine can be settled." The look upon the faces of the warriors proved that this was a proposition that tickled them, and they said a few words together in a low tone and looked towards their chief for a reply. As for the renegade, it did not strike them favorably, for his face was an index of what he thought, but he was no coward, vile as he was, and dared not refuse to face the scout. Did he wish to hold influence with the Indians? Though confident of his own strength and prowliness, however, he knew too much of Buffalo Bill to care to meet him with either revolver or knife. But the challenge had been hurled in his teeth, and live or die, he must accept the alternative, and he said grimly, "The redskin slayer has spoken well. We will fight." "The white antelope says no," says the Indian girl, facing the renegade. Her motive Buffalo Bill could not understand any more than he could the renegade. They had not met before. He had no claim upon her, and he was aware of. But she said no in a tone that showed she meant it. This very refusal caused the renegade to urge it on, while Buffalo Bill remained silent. "No," the white antelope says, "the Pahaska shall not fight," she repeated. "The death killer will give the white antelope the scalp of her foe to carry to her people," urged the renegade. "The white hunter would carry the scalp of the medicine chief at his belt," was the reply, and Buffalo Bill said batteringly, "That's just what I would do, Bennett. And I tell you also, though white antelope prevents our meeting now, I'll be on your trail like a wolf, and yet nail your scalp on my cabin door as a warning to horse thieves, stage robbers, and renegades." The last words were spoken earnestly, and the girl saw that they hit hard, so she said quickly, "Let the killer go to his chief and his braves. His horse is there," and she pointed to the well-trained animal waiting near. "I will do as the white antelope says, for there seems no charge of flight here." But the redskin girl let the white wrench take the scalp of my brother there. He pointed to the body of Danforth as he spoke. "No, the medicine chief will return on the trail with White Antelope and his braves, his warriors, will go too. If it's just the same, Miss Antelope, suppose you all light out now, and I will then start to my people, for I can see that the cursed renegade itches to secure a trophy that even Oakheart would not allow his warriors to touch. The white hunter has told the white antelope that he will come to the village of Oakheart. Yes, when I have guided my warriors here. Paaska's tongue is straight, she asked. Not a crooked or a curl in it, was the smiling response, and White Antelope will trust him. Let the medicine chief and his braves come. The renegade muttered an oath and a threat, and then followed the Indian girl, his warriors stalking slowly after him. Buffalo Bill watched them until they disappeared in the distance, and then muttered, though dead and gallant Danforth, you still hold the field. Chapter 20. The Mad Hunter. In the valley of a cavalry command was encamped a few hours after the battle where Danforth and his men fell to rise no more. It was not yet sunset, but the troopers had ridden hard, and the order to encamp had been given at an early hour. When the command came upon a spot for the bivouac, and the guide reported that the bridge before them afforded no good camping ground. The horses were soon lariated out, and scores of campfires were kindled among the banks of the stream, while the soldiers began to prepare for the coming night as best they could. Leaving his servant to prepare his frugal supper, the leader of the soldier band strode up the hillside toward the summit of the ridge as though to get a better view of the country about while daylight yet remained. Be careful, Captain, for I look for Injuns thereabouts at any time, called the guide, who was Texas Jack. All right, Jack, I'll call if I run upon any redskins, answered the fearless officer as he strode on alone up the hill. Once or twice he turned to enjoy the scene of beauty laid out before him, with the lovely valley and picturesque bovents, and alas, just as the sun sunk near the top of a distant and lofty range of hills, he reached a point from whence he could behold the country before which the morrow's trail would lead him. Below him was a shadow, for the sun had set to those in the valley, but the hilltops were bathed in golden light, and unconsciously speaking out loud, he said, no wonder that poor redskins love this land so well, that they fight for it. Well, said the officer, but I've got the drop on you. The officer started as the voice broke upon his ears, and dropping his hand upon his sword hilt, turned to the face of the speaker. Before him, and not 6 paces distant, having but just stepped out from a dense thicket, he beheld what at first appeared to be a hardy human, and yet none other was near. From his lips of the one upon whom his eyes rested had fallen on the words that had told him he was not alone. Who or what are you? Asked the officer, sternly, his eyes fixed upon the intruder, and beholding a man of giant size, clad in skins of wild beast, that had been first caused him to appear like a huge grizzly bear, rear-end upon his hind legs for an attack upon his foe. About his waist was a red foxskin belt in which were 2 revolvers and a large knife. Upon his head was a panther skin scalp or cap, the tail hanging down the back, and upon his feet were moccasins of black bearskin. Hair black as night falling to his waist, beard of the same hue, matted and unkempt, and a revolver held at his left hand and covered the officer. made up appearance of being that had so unexpectedly appeared. A glance had shown the officer a dark, haggard face, with eyes of strange blackness and brightness gazing straight into his own. In hoarse, deep tones, the strange being said, while he still held his revolver at the level and in his hand that had not the slightest tremor. "You ask who or what I am?" "Yes," said the soldier, watching him with eye of a hawk, hoping for some chance to draw a revolver which would place him on more equal terms with his giant foe. For such he felt assured he would prove a madman. The answer was fairly shouted. In spite of himself, the officer started at the savage response, but said in a kindly tone, "My poor man, but up your weapon and go with me to my camp, and I will care for you." "Never," was the savage reply. "But, my dear fellow—" "Hold. Address no words of kindness to me, for they are thrown away upon one whose duty it is to kill. Have you ever heard of the mad hunter?" "I have heard of such a character. A mad hunter. If you know of me, you will understand that my mission is to kill, and mercy I show not to none, not even one who wears a uniform as you do. No, no, I spare neither my own race, for I am a white man, or was, before I came as a wild beast, and redskin, too, is my foe. All are alike to me." The man spoke with intensity, though not a muscle moved, and in the iron hand still held a revolver as level, covering the officer's heart. "But now I have harmed you, my poor man. You are human, and mankind are my foes," was the trembling response, and then he cried out in a hollow tone, "Come, the night draws near, and I have yet to run down my game for my supper. Come, if you know prayers, say them before the sun sinks wholly behind the hills. I drop you dead in your tracks." The officer saw that the madman was a giant in strength as well as in size, and strange stories of the mad hunter had been told around campfires. To cope with him, he knew would be impossible, and a movement toward drawing his revolver, with which he was armed, would be a signal for his death. In full view below him was a bunch of his men, the campfires burning brightly in the gathering gloom. But to call for aid would precipitate the end, and he waited in silence, hoping for some freak of the madman's humor might save him. If the mad hunter kept his word, he knew he had few minutes to live, and to see how near the sun was to disappearing behind the hills, he turned his eyes in the direction. Instantly his face flushed with hope, for his gaze fell upon a form of a horse and rider. They were long away off, and upon the spur of a hill, and just where the sunlight fell upon them, revealing both distinctively. The horseman had been evidently about to descend to the valley when his eyes fell upon the scene upon the opposite hill, and though the madman and his intended victim were far away, he seemed to understand at a glance what was taking place, and instantly he drew rein, just as he was recognized by the officer, whom unconsciously allowed his name to break from the lips in a quick, hopeful whisper. "Buffalo Bill." The keen ear of the mad Hercules caught the name, and turning like a tiger in a bay, His gaze fell upon the scout on distant spur. Quick as a flash, as he turned, the officer had dropped his hand upon his revolver and jerked it from his belt. Throwing it forward, he drew trigger, and the hammer fell with a click upon the nipple, no report following. But the sound caused the madman to turn upon him once more, and the officer saw him bound upon him, throwing aside his pistol as he did so, and drawing his knife in his wild passion to kill. But even in that awful moment, the officer's eyes turned upon the distant spur, and he beheld a rifle rise to the horseman's shoulder, and he knew that, desperate as were the chances, Buffalo Bill intended risking a shot to save him. Chapter 21, Buffalo Bill's Shot. In that instant, after the hammer of his revolver fell without causing an explosion, the officer remembered that only that morning he had cleaned his weapon thoroughly, and not having the cartridges near him just then, he had slipped them into his belt, intending to load them as he rode along on the march. He had not forgotten to do so. Bravely and nervily man that he was, added to the fact that he was a dead shot, he could have killed the mad hunter. Realizing the uselessness of his revolvers, he at once whipped out his sword to meet his ferocious attack, although with little hope of contesting against the madman with any degree of success. He had recognized in the horseman, as his horse strode on spur, when the glimmer of sunlight rested upon him, one whom he knew as king of the bordermen, Buffalo Bill. He saw, too, in the moment of peril, that Buffalo Bill had caught sight of the scene upon the ridge when the mad hunter was springing upon him, and the sun's setting rays revealed the difference between the two distinctively. The one looked at the officer as he stood on guard to meet the attack, though he could not but know how it must end, showed to him that Buffalo Bill had suddenly thrown his rifle to his shoulder, and that the muzzle pointed toward them. Fearful indeed were the chances against him, but Buffalo Bill was the man to take just such chances. As he did take it, just as the blade of the madman was poised above the head of the daring officer, whose nerve did not fail him, there came the puff of smoke from the scout's rifle, and down upon his face the madman fell, heavily, burying his knife deep into the earth, and with a red streak across the top of his head, where the bullet had cut it away. Bravo, bravo, Buffalo Bill. I owe you my life. And heaven knows I never fought at closer quarters with death, said the officer, as he gazed in an instant upon the huge fallen form, and then turning toward the spur where he had last seen the scout, he took off his hat, waved it thrice around his head, while he gave a ringing shout. But the spur was already vacated, and up from the shadows came an answering cry, while he could see the horse and rider making for the valley. His shout remained unnoticed in the group of his men, doubtless drowned by the noise of the campfires, but the clatter of the hoofs of the scout's horse came distinctively to his ears, and soon after he beheld the animals mounting the hillside toward him, and his daring rider urging him on. With rapid bounds he came from the shadows below onto the glimmering twilight above. Drawing rein, the scout threw himself from his horse and confronted the officer. Cody, God bless you! Captain Ed Keyes. Such were the words from his lips of the two men, as their hands were clasped in warm and friendly greeting. Always in the right place just when you are wanted, Bill. I came pretty near being in the wrong place, for that was a long way off to take the chances, as I feared I might kill you. But it looks like the great American What is it that I have knocked over? And Buffalo Bill turned to the prostrate form of the madman, while Captain Keyes said, "It is the poor creature they called the Mad Hunter, and whose existence I half believe was only in imagination of old trappers until today." Cody. "I have heard of him, sir, and they say that he was a cruel demon, but I guess his evil works have ended. Now, sir, I have sad news to make known to you, and I was seeking the fort when I saw you, and as I first believed, a grizzly bear. It was worse, Cody, but what's the news you have? Quick, tell me, has Oakheart caught Danforth? You have said it, for the gallant fellow and his men have been wiped out." "Great God! And the brave and noble-hearted Keyes, who never flinched under the fiercest fire and deadliest danger, fared staggered and blown, while his voice trembled as he asked, 'Can this be true, Cody?' "I saw Danforth and his men dead on the field, sir," was the sad reply. "Then there can be no doubt but when and where. A couple of hours' ride from the village of Oakheart." They were surrounded and overwhelmed, but fought to the end with desperate courage, and every trace shows. I came upon the field this afternoon and left it an hour after to go to the fort and make known that the fearful tidings, and at the same time deliver the warning of Oakheart to those who follow on his trail. Ah, did you see that old wily chief? No, but one who represented him. And Buffalo Bill went on to tell the strange story of his visit to the fatal field and all that had occurred to him. While the two descended to the valley together, the scout's horse slowly following, and the mad hunter, seemingly forgotten, left lying there as he had fallen. Chapter 21 or 22, The Border King's Pledge. And there we go. Oops. Well, there we go. What another exciting story. I hope you all enjoyed that. Oh my gosh, I was sitting on the edge of my seat just reading it. Wow, the Mad Hunter. So Buffalo Bill got rid of the Mad Hunter, who'd killed many prospectors and miners and trappers in his day, and was going to kill Captain Keyes just for being there, like a big old bear. Can you imagine that? Big giant man coming up out of the brush. "I'm going to kill you too, just like I killed everybody else, and you're in my way. I kill white men, I kill red men. It doesn't matter." Oh, and then he forgot to load his gun. But anyway, needless to say, that was Buffalo Bill coming to the rescue. Now he met up with Captain Keyes, and where will he go from there? He has to take him back to bury Danforth, and then off to the village. What will happen next? Only one knows. So join us for next week's episode, or next time's episode, or whatever they say in Radio Land. So I hope you enjoyed all that. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun reading it. Remember, go out and do something nice for somebody, and just give a smile, a wave, anything. Make their day and make yours too. Remember, go out and be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love you all.